Hello everyone, I'm Roisin McKee. I'm Project Director with the Hospitality and Tourism Skills Network, HATS for short. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on recruiting today for your employer brand, which is part of our recruitment and retention webinar series being brought to you by HATS and supported by Tourism NI. Staffing issues, as you will be all too well aware, continue to be a major concern for the sector, which is a core focus for the work of HATS, which is an employer-led network supported by Invest NI, which brings employers together from across the industry alongside key stakeholders. And there's a collective focus on addressing talent attraction and retention issues in the sector through collaboration. So as part of our activity, this particular webinar series is being delivered to help businesses in their efforts to recruit and retain a sustainable workforce, but also to support the adoption and implementation of our hospitality and tourism commitment, which is a voluntary code of conduct which has been launched by HATS to improve the attractiveness of the sector as a provider of good quality employment and a great place to work. The commitment itself covers critical areas such as providing good quality training, work-life balance, wider employee support, and this webinar series dives into each of these in a bit more detail. So for this session, we're putting the spotlight on the area of recruitment aligned to your employer brand. And I'm delighted to welcome Greg Quinn from People HQ to deliver this session. Greg has over 25 years industry experience across multiple sectors, including hospitality, retail, and the food manufacturing sector. Greg opened People HQ back in 2019, and he's been assisting clients both in Northern Ireland, the South, and across the UK to build their employer brand by providing bespoke recruitment and HR solutions. Greg has a vast experience of successfully delivering effective recruitment and HR strategies that add value. Greg, we're delighted that you're able to join us, and I'll hand the floor, or should I say, the screen over to you. Thank you.
Lovely, Roisin. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be here today, and I will happily take you through my slides, and I hope you enjoy the content. So for today's webinar, we are going to focus on a number of key areas, and you'll see them there on the slide. We're going to first look at the recruitment environment. As Roisin has alluded to, there's been a lot of changes recently, and that is affecting how recruitment is working. We're going to look at the recruitment process, and that's really from start to finish, because I appreciate some of the audience who'll be watching this webinar will be really experienced in the recruitment side of things. Some may not be as experienced. And we will look at the difference between internal and external recruitment. We will look at the recruitment bias, because whether we like it or not, there certainly is such a thing. We will look at fair employment and equal opportunities. That's really important for those businesses based in Northern Ireland. And then we will wrap it all up by looking at how we build an employer brand and how important that is in today's current market, and especially for the hospitality sector. So the recruitment environment. I simply have a few bullet points here from both perspectives, from the employer and from a candidate perspective. And if we think of where we've come over this last couple of years, there's been a lot happening out there in the industry. We've seen the economic factor being affected, but a downturn that has affected some markets. And we've seen, especially in the hospitality sector, we've seen business closures, loss of revenue, etc., which has really affected businesses hard. We've had Brexit, that lovely word we've all loved to talk about. It isn't going away. But we think specifically how that's affected recruitment and the recruitment market. We've had that drain on labour to the sector. People leaving to return home, etc. That has just taken that labour pool and depleted it a little bit here in Northern Ireland. Yes, we have the EU settlement scheme, but again, that poses some challenges for businesses to manage, etc. COVID effect has affected us all this past 2.5 years, and while we're coming out of it, we are still suffering from some of the consequences of that. So budget constraints and talent supply, as we touched on. Sector closures we've talked about already. And then there's a fight for talent. So I'm sure all these managers out there now who are trying to recruit great talent for your businesses are seeing that the price per hour or that being offered across different businesses is slowly but surely increasing. That puts a squeeze on margins in businesses, whether that's a restaurant or hotel or the likes. From a candidate perspective, this past couple of years has made some people sit back and reflect really on what they really want. From an immediacy of moving roles, what I find from our recruitment division is the candidates, if we use the term sitting on their hands, they just don't want to move right now. They want to ensure that the economy is fully opened up. So they're just being a little bit more hesitant in making that next move. So they're happy to stay where they are for stability purposes. Candidates are certainly demanding more workplace flexibility. So yes, they've been out during furlough and had some time to work from home. But now as we start to open up the economy again, post furlough, that they like that bit of flexibility. So that's something to think about. And I know it's not easy in the hospitality sector when you need your teams on the floor serving customers, but maybe for some of those back of house roles, it's something to consider moving forward. And that links on to the next point around COVID and furloughed employees being comfortable at home. There is some who are assessing career choices, and that might have had an impact on the hospitality sector, where they decided, no, what, I want to try something different. But equally, that is an opportunity for the hospitality sector. So people who haven't worked in it before, it's time to promote now the opportunities and the benefits of working in the sector, because it does offer lots of flexibility, especially for people new to industry, for working parents, etc. There's lots of flexibility there. And as I alluded to already, it's a currently candidate-led market. So you need to ensure your employer brand is on point to attract the best candidates and talent to your business. And we're going to talk about that lots across today's webinar. If we look at what research says around the recruitment sector, some really stark statistics. The average cost per hire in the UK is £3,000. So for every single vacancy that you're trying to fill in this average business, that is the cost, £3,000. Now that's made up of management time, resource, advertisement cost, etc. But it's still a cost that hits the bottom line of a business. The average length of the job interview process in the UK is 27.5 days. So again, you want to ensure when you are doing recruitment that you are recruiting the best person for your role, and that labor turnover is kept at low levels. 76% of hiring decision makers say attracting quality candidates is their #1 challenge. And I'm sure as some of the viewers of this webinar today, you can just vouch for that, because the market is so challenging at the minute, and finding good quality candidates is becoming harder and harder. Again, why it's so important to think about your employer brand right now. 88% of hiring decision makers agree that an informed candidate is a quality candidate. So you can imagine all these interviews that you do and the amount of people you may talk to. Those people who sit in front of you or come to visit you that know about your business, about your brand, about the opportunities you present, your products. That's like a light bulb. You want those kind of candidates. And again, that all comes off the back of having a good brand, a good employer brand. So the people are informed about your business when it comes to the recruitment process. 75% of hiring decision makers say it's easier to attract top talent when they have knowledge about your organization. Again, like point 4, really important that you get that message out there about what your business is all about, what your culture is, your values, etc. When making a decision on where to apply for a job, 84% of employees or job seekers say the reputation of a company as an employer of choice is important. So that term, employer of choice, that's what you want to be if you want to be successful in attaining the right talent in your hospitality business. Going on, when we look at research, we look at the top barriers or challenges hiring decisions makers are facing when recruiting quality candidates. There's a few, and I'm sure you're all going to relate to these whenever I read them out. I touched on already the getting good quality candidates to apply to your business. There's some budget constraints because we've seen the changes in the economy that is affecting supply chains into the industry. And it's just that the margins might be squeezed now, and you have to watch your budget accordingly. and that may affect your recruitment budget. Trouble competing with compensation and benefits packages at other firms. So it is competitive out there. There's absolutely no doubt. And there's going to be bigger businesses out there with bigger budgets and bigger compensation and benefit packages. How can you beat that? Through having the best employer brand and being an employer of choice. And we're going to go on to talk about that. Knowing where to advertise jobs to attract the right people. There's lots of opportunities as to where to advertise, and we're going to talk about them today. See what suits your business or the role type best. So we've looked a little bit about the recruitment environment. Now let's look at the recruitment process. The recruitment process has a few essential stages, and each process could differ depending on the role or the level of that role within an organization. But typically the stages are at role design stage, advertisement stage, interview and assessment stage, offer stage, and then last but not least, onboarding. Really important. So think about role design at the very start of that process. The first stop really is to gather information about the role from a variety of sources within your business, and ask questions about whether the role exists or not. And then that analysis will lead you on to talk about the job description and the person specification that's needed around the role. Things you'll be thinking about at this stage are the job's purpose, what duties are involved, how and where it could be carried out, the role, what outputs will be expected of the job holder, and how it fits into the organizational structure. So certainly as an HR professional who's worked in the hospitality sector, so one of the first questions I would ask when a manager comes to have a role backfilled or a new role thought upon, really go into these conversations in good depth, because business changes, the environment changes, and you need to have your roles suited to that change. So we've done the initial conversation around job analysis, and then we're going to go on to think really, let's get some detail wrote down about this role that will help us move through the next stage of the recruitment process. So the job description, every role should have a job description. And that essentially explains to candidates the detailed requirements around that job, responsibilities and the objectives of the role that they are applying to. It also helps you as recruitment managers to manage the recruitment process, because you have a guide that you're working to try and match talent to. And it also provides clarity during induction and later on performance and work-related objectives. And alongside the job description then is the personal specification. And that essentially states the essential and desirable criteria for selection. And might outline some other characteristics around the role. And this is important when it comes to the shortlisting stage of the recruitment process. So as a business, this is a bit of paperwork, but it's an essential bit of paperwork that needs to be done to ensure you recruit the best talent for your business. And candidates will ask for the job description and personal specification when they apply, because they want that information as well. Advertising your role. So there's a variety of ways to advertise a role, and if you're an experienced recruitment manager out there, you'll know and you'll use some of these in the past. So external advertisement, internal advertisement, employee referral schemes, and using recruitment agencies as well is another option for business. Things you want to consider when you're deciding on what path to take to advertise is what gives you the best reach in terms of reaching out to a talent pool, out to the candidates that you want to apply. Your target audience, so where are they based, what do they read, what do they watch, and where are you likely to find them, so what platform, and what budget do you have, because budget's very important if you want to apply, use a variety of sources to advertise. It does cost money, and whatever one you use over another might save you a few pounds in your budget. So here's an example of that I jotted down, and there could be a few more, but these are the main ones across the 4 options for advertisement. So external, route, you can see there job boards, Facebook, LinkedIn, advertise throughout your venues. It's a great spot to have people visit your venues. Have your roles clearly advertised. Your website, if you have a website, have a career section or a directional arrow pointing you to the roles that are available. Speak to colleges, speak to universities. They have students who would be readily available for those entry-level type roles in the hospitality sector. You can use radio adverts if you're doing a more larger campaign, for example, for a venue opening. You can use your local press or industry. So catering publications is also a very good place to advertise, especially for more senior roles. Internally, promote all roles internally. And we're going to go on to talk about that in a little while, the reasons why that's good best practice. You've got notice boards internally. You can advertise in your pay slips, advertise through company newsletters or team meetings, and just different ways to spread that news about new vacancies within the business. Employee referral scheme, really, really good option to have your employer brand news spread across through your current employee pool who are there enjoying working with your business and working with the college within that business. They'll spread the word readily, and it helps as a little incentive for them to do that. It doesn't have to be expensive, but do give it some consideration. And I've seen different programs run over the years where it might be a small incentive whenever someone starts, and then an additional incentive when someone passes their probation, for example. Needs to be clear rules around such a scheme, and it needs managed. But that management isn't that arduous really once it's set up. Then you can use recruitment agencies. They'll help you attract talent. They'll help screen and shortlist talent for you. They can manage assessment centers. It's a more larger scale recruitment process. And they'll also promote your brand if you pick the right one. So when advertising your roles, a few things just to consider is use multiple and non-traditional outreach methods. Helps widen the pool. So don't just stick to one specific way of doing it. Advertise it in a few different ways and you'll reach more people. And especially if you think like using or trying to attract early entry candidates into the industry, they might be more on their phones, on apps, different social platforms. So tap into those, and that's where you'll generally find them. It's important not to forget the internal talent pool when recruiting. Again, really, really important. You've got a captive audience there. Providing opportunities for development and career progression can help retention and support succession planning. So important. So don't just look at a role as a vacant role that needs filled ASAP. Think about building and developing your team's succession planning for that next key supervisory or management role within your business. It could come through the next recruitment process. Attempt to automate things where possible. Use technology. In today's world, things are moving so fast, and we see everybody on their phones. You can tap into that. Great. And there's many AI tools that allow you to do that. And remember fair employment and equal opportunity. And we'll talk separately about that in a few slides' time. So the assessment stage, really important. So you've done all the hard work of assessing what role you need, defining that role, advertising the role, and now we come to a point of assessment. This is your time now to gauge candidates, gauge their experience and ability to perform the role. Explain the employee value proposition. So what do you offer? What can you give to them? And include learning opportunities and employee benefits. Give the candidate a positive impression of the organization as a good employer. You get one chance to do this, and this is your chance to do that. For the candidate, this stage is as important for them. It's a chance for them to understand the job and its responsibilities in more detail. So they're getting that chance to look beyond the job description and ask some questions that they may have considered and get to meet the teams that they could work with. They get to ask questions about the organization and the employee value proposition. So what do you really offer me if I come to work with your organization? They also get the chance to decide whether they would like to take up the job if it was offered. So they'll see if the fit's right, the cultural fit's right, and the values of the organization is right. That's questions that's going on in their head at that point in time. So really important that as recruitment managers, you give consideration to what the candidate is looking for and ensure that you and your team have built in a process to answer those kind of questions or points during the assessment stage. So a variety of options are available to use when assessing candidates. Like I said earlier, this will depend on the seniority of the role, the kind of the role, but there's different options available. When we think about the hospitality sector, here's a few different options that are available right now. We have interviews, your traditional interviews. We have role plays. We have testing, aptitude or psychometric type testing, assessment centers, and skills demos. So interviews, everyone's really familiar with interviews. We do them. That could be a 2-on-1 interview or a different size panel, but a series of questions and a series of answers, and you hope to get that match at the end of that process. Important that you score throughout that process. Role plays is a really good way, especially in the hospitality sector, for those customer-facing roles, where you can have people assessed on complaint handling, or thinking on their feet. What would they do if problem A was presented? Double booking and a customer arriving in the restaurant late or without a table or something. Think of scenarios and ask them questions to see how they're thinking about that. Testing you would typically use if you had a large pool of candidates and you wanted to shortlist that down further. You may use testing like aptitude testing on basic numeracy or literacy, or psychometric for more leadership type roles. Assessment centers are great for assessing, again, a wider pool of candidates and how people work as a team, or can problem solve, or their communication skills can all be tested through the assessment center very, very well. And then a skills demo, that could be, certainly within the hospitality sector, used for chefs, checking out their skills, maybe give them a set of ingredients and allow them to present a meal in X amount of time. Or someone working behind a bar, here's some ingredients, make us a cocktail, or whatever that skill assessment could be based on. That's up to you to use your creativity and present something to the candidate at the time. So the offer stage, the very important part of the process, where you're almost coming towards the end and you've identified the candidate that you like and you want to present an offer to. And obviously any offer would be presented upon completion of any pre-employment reference checks. And here we're touching a little bit on the legal, but I don't want to bore you on the legal side, but obviously any offer of employment is made. The candidate or your future employees have the right to receive a written statement of employment. And this statement of employment will include some essential details around the job. So obviously your business name, the job title, pay, hours of work, right through to notice periods, any collective agreements in the business, pensions or pension schemes. You'll see information out there on the relevant sources that breaks this down. It provides even templates of the written statement of employment particulars. Onboarding a new team member. So the recruitment process doesn't stop once you made the offer. You think, yes, role filled. Really important that you carry through in the onboarding process and induct people appropriately, because if this is a chance for you to make a really good next impression, and sometimes a first impression for some. So onboarding and inducting new team members is essential to creating the best start on the employment relationship. And that's what it is. It's a relationship between the organization and the candidates, your then employee, that hopefully will continue for a period in the future. Induction shouldn't be rushed, especially for lesser experienced team members who are new to the job market. So it's really important. You might have a restaurant manager joining your business, or an executive chef joining your business, who've got a wealth of experience and they'll know lots, but they won't know a lot about your organization. So it's important that you take that time to take them through all the do's and the don'ts about the organization, etc. But on the flip side of that, you have people who maybe leaving school or are coming to you part-time during your studies who have no experience. So the induction is vital for someone like that to get all the information that they need. So take time to go through the detail and ensure that they understand it and ensure that you're signed off to protect the business as well. Areas that could be covered during the induction could include pre-employment documentation. So I've got all the paperwork in order that we need. Health and safety. So here's some of the risks in my business, and here's how we risk assess against that, and here's how you protect yourself. Might talk about PPE at that point as well. Organizational information. So again, that's just that who's who. Here's how the business was formed. Here's a bit about our culture. Here's our values, and here's the key people you need to know. Facilities and security. So it's really important that they know their way around, especially when there's customers on the venue. They need to know where the fire exits are, where the staff facilities are, if their clock-in cards, whatever the case may be. Know their lockers is for personal belongings. Role-specific information. So they need to know about the role they've just been employed to do. So again, you'll reflect in the job description, then you'll give them some core training around that role to ensure they're comfortable in starting that, and then that training will be built upon as they go forth in that role. Pay and benefits. So you can answer any queries around that and communicate pay dates, etc. Really important. Important to the people who've started in the role. They need to know how and when they're getting paid. And then uniform. So that they have all the uniform organized for the first shift within the business. And all inductions do differ. And again, it depends on the business, but that's and a token, that's the top core areas that should be touched on in any induction. So moving on to talk about internal versus external recruitment. So we did look at the various options to avoid to advertise, and internally and externally is one of those. And it's important that we just talk about specifically, because sometimes the internal aspect can be forgotten about by some organizations, but it shouldn't be. It's vitally important for a number of reasons. So there are disadvantages and advantages of both internal and external recruitment, and these include, they're not limited to, you'll see there on the table. Going internally with recruitment, obviously the advantage of that for management is it saves time. It would save budget. There's less uncertainty because you know your employee pool who could be applying. You know the key people who may apply for a role. And there's good motivation within your business to apply for a promotion. The disadvantages of internal, it does limit your options because you may not have all the talent numbers to apply to a key role within your business. More training could be needed in that if someone is stepping up a level, they might have all the process and the business knowledge, but they may need more training around the management and the leadership piece, for example, leading teams, etc. And there could be some resentment from other team members about against people who have been promoted. So those who have got a regret, but that needs managed. When we look at external recruitment, what's the advantages of that? So you have fresh ideas coming through, someone new to your business who's come from other areas in the industry who can bring some fresh thinking. You've obviously got a wider talent pool because the industry is big, and putting it outside of your business, the role outside of your business will attract more eyes to your advert and hopefully more candidates applying. And then you'll have a better chance of hiring a skilled and experienced talent as well. The disadvantages of just purely on external recruitment is higher cost. You've got advertising costs, depending on what route you decide to advertise on. There's always that risk of hiring someone who's not up to standards or poor hiring decisions. Someone may come to you and do a wonderful interview, have all the textbook answers, but when it comes to it, they can't deliver on the ground. And because they're not internally, you haven't had that foresight before. And then that becomes a performance management issue and perhaps a field probation, which is more time and management's time spent. And it could take longer to fill a vacancy if you recruit someone from external because of notice periods. And notice periods at the minute can range anything from 1 to 2 weeks up to 3 months, depending on the level of role within the that you're filling. It's time and money and resource. So avoiding the recruitment bias. If I was to do a quick survey of the audience now, you see all the hands up there. If I was to say, who has got their own personal biases when it comes to recruitment? The hands may not go up so readily, but I think we all have them, probably subconsciously we have them. So it's important to try and recognize that now. So hiring the right person is important, and avoiding bias during the recruitment process is equally important. Here are ways that can help us do that. Try and use gender neutral language in job boards and job descriptions. So you're not saying he must be the best person or she must be the best person. Try and use gender neutral language. Blind reviewing of CVs without name or gender being included at first. That can be really good. Just provide the job experience to the shortlisting panel, allow them to think about the role and the jobs, the skills the person had. Use structure across your assessment process using scoring and have multiple opinions involved. So try not to have one person being the decision maker. Have more people involved in the process, have a more joined up voice on the decision of who to recruit. Shift the focus of the interview to the skill set, because most job interviews revolve around personality. What's your background? Where were you educated? On previous work experience, but think about the skills and the aptitudes needed for the role, and try your best to hone your recruitment in around that. Use software if possible. As I alluded to already, there's plenty of AI out there that will help you assess candidates, and that takes the emotion, takes the personal piece, the bias out of it. They'll assess using AI, and they'll tell you based on a scoring back who is the best candidate potentially for that role. And important that decision makers can identify and be conscious of their own unconscious biases. So I would encourage everyone to think about that, and just be very conscious when you're going through the recruitment process, not to have any biases brought to the fore of any decision making that you make. Fair employment and equal opportunities, especially in Northern Ireland, this is really important. So as we know, we have the Equality Commission in Northern Ireland who give us great guidance around how employment can be fair and how we can promote equal opportunities. So key points to note is it is important that all roles are advertised internally, and internal candidates are given the opportunity to apply for new roles. So we've touched on internal versus external recruitment. It's important that you do not avoid advertising internally, because that's discriminating against those candidates not getting equal opportunity to apply for a role. Equal opportunities legislation is in place to guide employers on best practice and legislation. Again, I'm not going to go through the minutiae of that legislation today. There is a source here for you to do that, but I would recommend you take time to do that. It's really important. Ensure that your recruitment and selection procedures are fair and are founded on the principle of objectively selecting the best person for the job. And being an equal opportunity employer also helps to attract the best talent when recruiting staff. So again, it comes back to your employer brand, your values, the culture that you have. People are looking to see, what is this organization like? And they'll read your materials or check your website, and they'll want to see about equal opportunities and fair employment, and attracting a diverse workforce. It all helps with that applicant applying to your job vacancies. So we've talked a lot about the recruitment environment, the recruitment process, internal v external recruitment, equal opportunities and fair employment, and we touched on some best practice, some options around that. But all of that wrapped up, if done right, allows you to create a really good employer brand to make your business be an employer of choice. And this next section that we're going to finish off with is on that topic, employer brand specifically. there's a lovely little quote that I came across. If the reputation of a company's products and services is its face, the talent brand is the heart and soul. So think about that. If the reputation of a company's products and services is its face, the talent brand is its heart and soul. I think that's a great quote. And that's by Hank Stringer and Rusty Wolf. If you look them up, they are renowned writers in the whole talent space. That's something to think about today. So why employer brand matters? Huh? So again, some research. Companies are overpaying on salaries by 10% if they don't have a strong brand. So they're trying to pay more to attract and retain talent. 50% of candidates say they wouldn't work for a company with a bad reputation, even with a pay increase. So we all know the motivating factors that affect our employees, and pay is only a small part of that, believe me. 96% agree that alignment of personal values with a company's culture is a key factor in the satisfaction of working there. 96%. 80% of workforce leaders agree that a strong employer brand has a significant impact on their ability to hire a great workforce. And I'll allow you to read on the rest of that in your own time and you reflect back on this. But 80% of workforce leaders agree that a strong employer brand has a significant impact on their ability to hire a great workforce. A few more stats. 19% of employees globally perceive a strong alignment between what their employer says about itself and their experience working there. 1 to 2 times companies with a strong employer brand have 1 to 2 times faster time to hire. So they can hire people nearly twice as fast because their brand's there and people are queuing up to work for them. And their processes are so streamlined. Just helps them do that thing a little bit faster. The number one obstacle to candidates in the application process is not knowing what it's like to work at an organization. So they've applied for a role, but they can't find no information about it. They can't talk to anyone to get enough information about the opportunity, about the business. So that's why, when we touched on earlier, having all those things ready for the assessment stage or the advertisement stage, even before that, is so important. 76% of employees who experience a strong alignment between what their employer says about itself and their experience working there are more likely to recommend their employer as a great place to work. So your employee pool is just so important to spread that great news, that great employer brand that you have. And lastly, 52% of candidates first seek out the company's website and social media to learn about an employer. So definitely take time to review your website, definitely take time to review your social pages, and ensure that you have good news stories peppered throughout that, because it's important, so important for your brand. So a few hints and tips, and this is probably based on my 25 years in industry and having interviewed thousands of people and hired thousands of people of what works. You're thinking about your HR or your employer brand strategy. Tell good news stories. People love to hear stories, and people love to hear good news stories. So if you have your good news stories identified, share them on your social pages and your websites internally and team catch-ups. Really, really important and really powerful. People buy people, and people will join on the basis of stories about people. So sing loud and proud about the good news stories in your business. Provide flexibility. Certainly this last 2.5 years has shown us that flexibility is vital. And you'll have all sorts of people with different personal situations applying to your role. So provide flexibility that gives them options into, yeah, okay, I'll want to work for you, but I actually need X days off per week because of this commitment. So have flexibility built into your contracts. And that all needs worked out. But in hospitality, it can be done. Promote the industry. So When you're there as an employer in your organization that's before looking to recruit talent, be there and be seen to be promoting the industry as well. You're there, you want to grow, you want to make the industry better. We need great talent to help us do that. It helps. Survey your teams. There's nothing as greater as getting the opinion of your teams as to what's good about us as an employer. How can we be better as your employer? Ask the question, get ideas for them to enhance that message to build your employer brand. Because they've been working with you, they like you, I hope, and they will give you that feedback. Reward fairly. So take time to review your reward strategies to see, one, that you're competitive, and two, that they're fair. And that'll help you, again, attract and retain talent. Build careers. So promote the fact that you're building careers, that you want to invest in people that come on board, you want to develop them and allow them to flourish to whatever point they wish to personally. But the options are there. Build a good social media presence. So we've touched on that already. There's various platforms out there. Be sure you use the ones that are appropriate to your business and to the talent pool you're looking to tap into for the roles that you're advertising. Something that I see all the time, people go into Facebook pages, and if they see stories of team good news stories of a recent leadership program or a new launch of a new employee benefit, whatever that may be, a new uniform launched, it all helps. Just people are, this organization is investing in their people. Promote diversity in the workplace. We all know that through legislation we have to do this, and we want to do this, but be there and shout about it, because it shows that you're an open employer and you're a good place to work. Focus on culture. People will want to align to an organization that is close to them, and they see one with a good culture, the right leadership qualities. They will appreciate that. Develop teams. So again, we talk about building careers. Develop your teams. Invest in time in developing your teams, and that starts from the very start, from inducting them, to train them in their job, and then beyond that, the various steps to take them forward. Establish values. So think about the organization that you have, and you may already have values in them, but if you do, take time to revise them. If you don't have values, I'd seriously consider that you take time to do it. Something we do quite a lot with our clients is think about your values. What do you really stand for? And then when you've got them clarified, then you can promote and recruit on the back of those values. It really helps you get the right fit in person to work in your business. Be authentic and transparent. So tell people things about you, but be honest and authentic about that communication. Tell them what's good about your organization and maybe what's bad about your organization that could be improved upon, but be open and transparent in all communications, and they'll be received well by candidates and certainly by your employees that are currently there as well, from a retention point of view. And then last but not least, promote career development. So people will enter the hospitality industry looking at a career, and you need to convince them that you can help them develop their career, and you have a succession plan and a pipeline for talent development established within your business. So after all that is me finished. I hope you've got something from my webinar today. I'm delighted to have shared some insight with you. And if you need any further information, you have our contact details there, People HQ. And lastly, thanks to the team at HATS for inviting us along today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. I certainly found that really insightful presentation, packed full of information, best practice tips for employers to support their recruitment practices and to build the employer brand, and most importantly, to become that employer of choice that you've referred to. A copy of the slides can be accessed following this, and that obviously will then include your contact details as well. There's certainly many takeaways for everyone depending on the recruitment expertise that sits within the business. I'd also like to thank Tourism NI for supporting us to deliver this webinar series, and to thank all of you for attending. I hope that you've gained value and insight from the webinar, and that you'll join us for others in the series, for which you'll find details on our webpage, hatsnetwork.co.uk. And some of these will direct you to some organisations who can directly support in connecting you with wider talent pools to support that diversity and inclusion agenda, which Greg has referred to as well within his presentation. So all that remains is for me to thank you again for joining us, and continued success in implementing our hospitality and tourism commitment in your business as part of a sector strategy to build back better, to boost perceptions of our industry, and to tackle the staffing challenges that we face head on, and to build more employers of choice. We look forward to you joining us again soon. Thank you.